Hello, Ramon. You look fabulous, but you look a little different.
I think if there were people here yesterday, they saw me yesterday, so they get more of me. But this is the last day.
Is it? Is it? Is it? So for folks who are just joining us for the first time, maybe you've wandered down the wrong alley on YouTube. Maybe you're clicking around on Twitch and you're like, what are those people doing? Why is it so messy behind that lady? So what we're doing is we're doing a free JavaScript bootcamp where we're going through the material from Free Code Camp. Why my place is messy is my business. Thank you very much. It's blurred. You have to pretend that we don't know it's messy. And because yesterday I was off speaking at a conference, and today we thought we would give Ramon a day off. We're having our very favorite Stuart back. I heard from all of the learners, we're all gossiping. Oh, Stuart's hair is so great. He's so good at JavaScript. The basics. And for those of you who aren't already in the know, all the bootcamp has a code of conduct. Yeah, it's right here. If you want to check out the schedule, because we're going to be doing this straight through until April 5th. We're going to do this forever. Or you can bop up and join us on Discord. So if you're watching this and it's not live and you have a question, which is not about my messy flat, you can ask it on Discord and we'll get back to you later. So let's go. Did y'all have homework?
They did. They were. Everyone was given homework by Ramon yesterday.
Did he do the stern face?
He did not. Does he have a stern face? I can't imagine anything less Ramon than a stern face. No, we did up to item, article, question 86, and then everyone was asked to do up to question 90 for homework.
Oh,
so we should maybe start.
That's not terrible for homework.
I see. Looking at your screen here, Jess, doesn't it highlight the ones that you've done?
I was at a conference, so PhD
yeah. And so
like giving a talk on stage and being fancy. So also, this is me modeling that there are no deadlines and no one's going to check your homework except for Stuart, who is now the meanest teacher.
Correct. So anyone who did not pick up to piece 90, you're fine. You're not alone because Jess didn't either. It's fine. We will explain where we're up to now, and then we will continue from there.
So it looks like we've got an array and a method. Can I get one of the learners who was here and paid attention? What is a method? So you already know, but what are the learners like? How would you describe a method for somebody who doesn't know? And I see somebody asking for the Discord link. I'm just going to save that. And if folks have questions as we go, we'll go ahead and do a question and answer later. I'll get that in just a second for you. But here our code created an inventory array and new weapon at the end of the inventory using the push method. Okay.
Yeah. So right at the beginning of the project, if you scroll right the way up to the top, Jess.
All the way to the top.
Then we should have this is all the stuff that we did yesterday. But if you go right the way up to the top, we should have created inventory. There it is.
Oh,
right. So line 7, we created an inventory array, and we'll now use that.
And we're going to come all the way back down, and we've got a bunch of people who are like not just giving us really good answers for what a method is, but like really consistent answers, which makes them all sound kind of samey. So these sound right. So a method is a function of an object. Kristen, I like this. Method is a thing a function does. That's probably how I'd try to explain it. Methods are the built-in functions of JavaScript. That seems right. They're very confident.
So all of those things are true descriptions. I would probably take Anthony White's thing. A method is a function and an object. If you're asked that sort of question in a job interview or something like that, that's the kind of answer they'd be expecting you to get, that a method is a function, but it's a function that's attached to a particular object.
Oh, makes quite a bit of sense. And we do have a question from Eric just while I'm looking at this. Are you in a TARDIS? I thought you were in the old Guardian library.
This came up yesterday. People asked what my background was, and some people correctly identified it as the TARDIS, which it is. and it's Colin Baker's TARDIS, the Sixth Doctor. But yes, it was also Tom Baker as well. So well spotted, Eric.
We need to do some steps. So at the beginning, add the new weapon to the end of the array using the push method.
Correct. So if you scroll down a bit.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've got a blank. It's given us a convenient blank line. So you want to push the new. So you can see there in line 93, we've allocated a new variable called new weapon, and we've set it to be the name of the current weapon item in the weapons array. So we did that in the previous steps.
And the array is called weapons?
Yes. So there is an array, and you can hold on. So you can we have used the weapons array, which is a list of weapons, and current weapon is an index into that array. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. So we've now set new weapon to be the object in the weapons array pointed at by the current weapon variable. And then we've taken its name. That's what line 93 does. So new weapon is now a string, which is the name of the current weapon. It's going to be something like stick or bagger or words to that effect. And what we're being asked to do now is to push that string onto the end of the inventory array. Inventory is an adventure gaming word, which means the stuff that you have.
Okay, so I thought this was going to be another JavaScript term, and you'd be like, "What an inventory is?" But
so what we want to do, if you want to move the screen up a little bit so we can see what you're asked to do, you're asked to push new weapon onto the end of the inventory array.
Okay, so inventory dot push smooth brackets new weapon.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is excellent. So we're saying inventory is an array. It has a push method, which means take the thing that I pass you and put it on the end of this array. And the thing that we want to pass it is new weapon.
New weapon.
And that goes inside the brackets because it's a parameter.
Okay. Oh, that goes inside. Yeah. Okay. And we talked about like a lot of our learners and me as well often have a little bit of a difficult time what do I need to put in my parameters? What values do I need to keep track of? But this will give us a green stripe if we're right.
Yep.
Oh, Ramon does a little pat thing. Does he have you doing that yet?
I have seen him do it, so I'm all in favor of it. Nice one. So pat everybody.
Very British about it. You're like pat. So up until now, anytime text.inner text was updated, the old text would be array. Oh, I know this. So we're going to use an operator. And I like this one, this plus equals. So this means like add it without overwriting it.
Yes. So we did this a little bit yesterday. People will remember that we use plus equals to add something to the value of our health, and we use minus equals to subtract something from the value of our gold when we bought things. Now plus equals also works on strings. So if you've got a string of text and you do that string of text plus equals something, it will make your string of text have that new text on the end of it, but won't wipe it out.
Okay, so text inner text plus equals
and then our new string. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you can see on line 94, for example. Sorry, I interrupted.
No.
So text is people remember from yesterday, if they're here yesterday, text is the element in the DOM which has got all that text in the moment, the welcome to dragon repeller stuff, and its inner text value that's how you set the text within it. So what you've done there, Jess, if you need your semicolon on the end, you will remember.
Will I remember?
So you've got text. Oh, scroll down.
Yeah, everything's fine.
So you've got text.inner text equals. So what that would do is that would set the value of inner text to be the thing we've typed in, which means that it would overwrite it. We'd set it to on line 94. We'd set text.inner text to be now you have a stick. and then we'd immediately change it to in your inventory you have colon, and so you never see the first bit. What we want to do is add it on the end, and that's why there's a space at the beginning of that, because otherwise it would run the word in and the full stop at the after new weapon to be
all
the thing.
together.
So we could try this out, I think, couldn't we?
Oh,
before we go on to the next
before
challenge.
we go on.
So if we go to the store and then buy a weapon. Okay.
Ooh.
So we can see there
we have a dagger, which is what we did here on line 94.
Yes.
And
we established that it was a dagger because current weapon is it started at 0, which means the stick, and then we incremented it on line 91 to be 1, which means the dagger.
And if I bought another weapon, it would show the value that it's pointing at as it increments up, which would be 0, 1, 2.
Correct.
And that would be a...
I can't remember what the next weapon is.
I don't have 30 gold.
But that's the thing, because on line 89 we have the if function that we put in yesterday saying you need more than 30 gold to buy a weapon. If we try and buy another weapon, it won't work.
I would kind of like an error message or something.
Doesn't work. Fabulous.
Oh, you know what? We've got somebody asking a really good question about syntactic sugar. Well, we'll ask that. Look at that at the end. Okay, so we got our little stripe. We feel good about this. We can bop on. Nothing's wrong. Because when we did this, go to the store, buy a weapon, it kind of feels like we want that to list all of the things in the array. And we're going to do that here.
That's exactly what step 92 is, I believe. Yes.
Jesus. And this is going to feel almost exactly like what we just did. I'm going to use text inner text plus equals again, I bet. And I'm just going to copy this because I'm a very lazy.
I think. Oh yeah, no, okay, yeah. I wondered if it was asking you to do it all in one line, but I don't think it is. You're right. I think yes, it's asking you to do
Chris,
it.
I think we're about to do this now, and Chris is saying, "Yeah, got my back." Where I'm like, "This should list our weapons." There's a little bit of a delay, so Chris would have asked this right before we saw use the concatenation operator, and I just wanted to be like, "No, you're absolutely right."
Yeah.
The concatenation operator is the
plus equals.
Plus, this thing I knew that. And then it's just inventory.
Yep.
But that's a variable, so it's not in quotation marks.
Correct.
That's gonna work.
Well, give it a try.
Oh. I mean, obviously, I'm very confident in my abilities and yours as well. But that works. So there's a decent chance we're just going to get a little. Oh, it's the plus.
You should add the concatenation. Oh, yeah. So it does want us to do it in one line.
Okay.
So what it wants us to do is on line 96, we want to say in your inventory. Yes. So what we did worked. And we talked about this a bit yesterday, that there are often 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 different ways of doing something, and none of them are wrong. If you've got a thing that works, that's fine. What this is asking us to do in particular, I think, is do it this way, where we do it all in one line, but we didn't have to.
Yeah. So we've got somebody asking, can we write arrays directly to the screen? And it looks like that's what we've done here. Like that feels like that worked. We've got the contents in the array.
So what I'm not sure whether it will talk about that a little bit in the next step, but if it doesn't talk about that a little bit in the next step, about spaces and so on, we will come back and I will explain a bit more about writing things that aren't strings to the screen.
Okay.
So we may come back to that, but it may go on and do it, so I don't want to preempt that.
So this unnecessarily cute little animation is a really, really good break for us to say, hey, the boot camp's free, and free code camp, it's right in the name, it's free. But they're also a registered nonprofit. So if you have the money, don't y'all go spending money you don't have. But if you have the money, it's really, really nice to donate. I'm going to ask later because I donate on my other account. This I leave it up so that y'all get the, hey, it's nice to donate there. Add an else. Y'all have already done else statements.
Yes. Talked about those yesterday.
We've got this if. So if this thing is true to the thing, otherwise, and the else's are otherwise.
Yeah, because at the moment, if you in the game, if you go to the store and then buy a weapon, then it will buy a weapon and subtract 30 gold.
Yeah.
But then if you try and buy another weapon, it just won't do anything. Now what we're saying is, if you don't have enough gold, this is what we want you to do.
So, else, okay, so we don't have to set here. We set the if this thing is true, if this situation is what's going on, do these things. But else, we don't have to specify the situation. It says, hey, if you have more than 30 gold, do this one thing. But if you have any other thing going on, if you have silver instead of gold, if you have yen instead of gold, if you suddenly find yourself in space, anything else, do this other thing.
Correct. Else is basically a catch-all. It's if the if doesn't apply, this is what you do.
And that's going to be equal, so not the concatenator.
Yeah, because we're just overwriting the text with our new text, which just says you do not have enough gold to buy a weapon.
And like later on, just to preview it, I bet later on we might learn some ways to set multiple different levels to say,
well,
okay.
I suspect we'll get to that, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Something else we talked about yesterday, before you go on, you see what Jess has done there is she's got the else on a whole new line. Some people do that. Some people prefer to have the else on the same line as the closing curly bracket. So you could put line 97 could be close curly bracket, else open curly bracket. But that's just a matter of spacing preference, as we talked about.
No. The whole time I've been like, oh, do you know what? People can choose the way to code that works best. And I didn't know I had a strong opinion about that. But like, no, clearly other line.
You will see. This is not the first time. This is not the last time you will hear people who have strong opinions about how you should format your code. We did also discover that you can have free code can format your code for you.
Yeah, the little right click.
Yeah, and you can say format document. It's very whizzy. I didn't know about that.
Oh, it's like a VS Code thing under the hood.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't think it's going to talk about concatenation.
Okay.
About stringification. So I will diverge a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah,
People ask, can we write an array to the string? And you saw there, we are literally adding inventory, which is an array, onto a string and then sticking it in text or inner text. You might think, but how does that become a string? It's an array. And the answer is everything in JavaScript is capable of being stringified. Which means it's capable of being turned into a string. Not everything has a particularly useful stringification. So, for example, an array, if you stringify, if you try to use an array as text by adding it onto a string or setting text or inner text to be an array, what you get is all the individual things in the array separated by commas and no spaces.
No space. I bet there's a whizzy way to put space. I bet it'll make us do it.
Well, I wonder if it will do in a bit. Some of you might have seen occasionally on a website, it used the phrase, it'll have an open square bracket and then object, and then close square bracket. If you stringify an object, if you add an object to a string, that's what you get. You don't get any of the contents of that object. It's really annoying and useless. But arrays actually work quite usefully when you turn them into text.
So I just put an if, and then my curly baby's at the top and bottom. So it says wrap all of my by weapon function inside another if statement.
Bear in mind, what you're looking to do here is you're wrapping everything inside your by weapon function. And what you've done there is you've put the if before the function. So
I thought it said wrap all of your code in your by weapon function.
Yeah, I think it means all of the code that's in the function, not the function itself. You would not want to conditionally define whether the function exists. The function always wants to exist. When we call it, we do different things.
Okay, so wrap all of my code in by weapon. So starting here?
Yes.
So like if?
Yes. So
I think this is probably called a nested.
It is called a nested if.
And what I'm going to do, I bet I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to try and find where to put this other one. Is it here?
Well, sure, yes.
And like, is that something that's going to get us a lot in JavaScript? Is like, where's my remaining?
You need to make sure your things are balanced. So what we've got here is we've got an if statement, and then it's got all the rest of the stuff in it, and then the if statement closes. So you have to make sure these things are balanced properly. When an if statement starts, it must have an ending, and anything inside that, if it starts inside that, it must also end inside that. So just use the word nested, which is true. You can think of this as being a box inside which is a smaller box, inside which is a smaller box.
I always think about the nesting dolls.
Yeah, the Matryoshka dolls or whatever.
Yeah, where they have to have a top and bottom.
Yeah.
And one thing I like is if you click on an opening one, it'll highlight where it closes.
Yes.
And if you accidentally get rid of one, it should let you know. Oh, see, it's not going to highlight that for me. It's leaving one of them unhighlighted.
Yeah. So yeah, these things, and obviously if you've got one of those Matryoshka dolls, then you can't have a doll which is partially inside another doll and partially outside. That doesn't work, and that will break your JavaScript. So don't do that.
If current weapon is less than 3, somebody pointed this out earlier. Where are you? That's menacing. Where are you?
You want less than 3, not -3.
Oh,
look that up.
Yes, that makes quite a bit of sense. Less than 3.
Less than 3.
How do you mean?
Less than 3 is the other way around. So,
look, I've had a long day all day. No, yeah.
Yep. So you want current weapon to be less than 3, which is why the thin end is pointing at current weapon and the thick end is pointing at 3.
Look, you're real snarky.
No, it's not snarky. It's literally how I remember this.
We had somebody pointing out that one of the problems with inventories, Eric was like, the thing about these kind of games is your inventory is always full, and that's what we're sort of setting up and checking now.
Yeah.
Ooh, Nikki's previewing that we might eventually do it like a length. This dot length might be another way to determine a length. Cool.
So at the moment, what we're doing is we know that there are only 3 weapons, but because we define the weapons list, and so we're checking if it's less than 3. Nikki, you are right. In a more accomplished version of this, we probably wouldn't hard code that number to be 3. We'd make it go and look up the list, the list of weapons, and say, is your current weapon bigger than the length of the list of weapons? But here, I think
and then you could get like a bigger bag and increase the number of weapons. So, like, the ability to do this flexibly means that you wouldn't say 3 is a number.
Yeah.
No, get ahead of yourselves. These are all fun questions.
Yeah, no, this is great. Ha! There it is. You're in fact exactly one exercise ahead.
I'm seeing a couple people who were like, not only did I do my homework, but I did. So arrays have a length property. Okay, so arrays just have a built-in way of knowing the length.
Yes.
Cool. That's method.
It's a property. Methods are things you call, and therefore they have their curly brackets and they return a value. Properties are just a value which is attached to an object.
So arrays have a length property that returns the number of items in the array. And exactly like you said, we might want to add more values to weapons in the future. Change my if condition to check. Oh, okay. So I don't want to say less than 3.
Yeah, you want to say you're still checking if it's less than, but now we're checking if it's less.
Oh. I got it. I'm really smug. No.
So remember, current weapon is our number, which is currently 0, 1, 2, or 3. We're checking if current weapon, our number, is less than weapons.length.
Okay, look. So whenever I'm looking really, really smug, you definitely got to get me before I finish the sentence because it's almost definitely going to be wrong. Anytime I'm really confident, nah. Anytime I'm like, oh, maybe, then I'm always. So Kristen's got a really good one, and I'm going to check this and see if it works. Can we method versus properties again? So methods are we call a method and it does something, whereas a property is like a trait that belongs to here the array.
Yes. So objects can have methods or properties. A method is a function and a property is a value. So a property is just one thing, like the number 7 or a string or something like that. So if you had a Stuart object, then Stuart.name would be Stuart. Stuart.legs would be 2, for example, and those are both properties. They're just fixed values. A method is a function that belongs to that object that you call, it runs some code, and then returns a value of some kind.
Okay. And I think that's what the comparison on line 89 is. Let's get that right first. So I think it's saying if current weapon is less than weapons.length.
Yeah. And so the reason it's doing this is because whenever you buy a weapon, it just increments, it adds 1 to the current weapon value. So you start off with current weapon 0, which is a stick. And then when you buy a weapon, it gives you the next one up, which is a dagger. And then you buy a weapon, it gives you the next one up, which is sword. If we then were to buy another one, there isn't one in the weapons array after sword. So things would blow up. It would try to access the 4th item in the array, and there isn't a 4th item in the array. So what we do is we prevent that from happening in the first place, rather than letting people have current weapon be too high a value and then dealing with that. We make sure that it never gets too high by saying, if you've already got the best weapon, the last item in the array, we just won't let you buy another weapon.
Fine. Like, get out of my store. You don't have anything you need. So, Monica, this is a really good question. I'm going to go ahead and save that for the question and answer, if that's okay. So this sounds like if we were designing this, if we were making this ourselves, and instead of following these steps, it kind of sounds like we would want to think through the behavior of our user, but also the behavior of our program. So say, hey, what if someone tried to blank? What if somebody tried to buy too many weapons? What if somebody tried to buy a weapon that doesn't exist? And like, we have to build our program to match our projections of what we think users might try to do.
Yes. So we could give that a try. So if you go to the store, unfortunately, we don't have enough gold to buy more than one weapon, so this is hard to test. But we could.
Oh no, but we could cheat.
Why don't we just go up to the top and tell her and say we have 1 million gold or something?
Is it all the way at the top? It's all the way at the top.
It's all the way at the top, I believe. Yeah, gold equals 50. So give us 500. Oh, nice. Okay, we have all of the gold. That's literally how easy it is, folks. Welcome to information technology. So try buying a weapon.
Oh, I like that as well.
So we have a dagger, and in our inventory we have stick and dagger. If we buy another weapon, claw hammer was the next one. My mistake. And then if we buy another one, now we've got a sword. And if we buy another one, it shouldn't work. And I'm assuming you're clicking and it's not doing anything.
It is doing something. It's even more exciting than it not working. I'm going to click in 3, 2, 1. Oh wait. I thought the gold was still going down. It doesn't work.
No.
I thought it was charging us money, but no, that wouldn't work because it wouldn't run the function.
Because it runs the function, but inside the function, we check right at the top if you have if your current weapon is the sword, if your current weapon is index 3, and if it is, then we don't do anything else in that function. We have no else in that if, and all the other code was inside the if. So we don't run anything. We still call the buy weapon function, but that function says, if you have enough gold, you can do this. Otherwise, don't do anything. So we don't do anything because we've got all of the weapons.
Sorry, I was listening to you, but I was also enjoying cheating.
But also cheating, yes.
Look. So, Mitch, we've got a couple of really good questions here. I'm gonna grab this just to go ahead and get it at the end. Come all the way down. So the current weapon variable is the index of the weapons array. And I bet this is something that we're going to mess up all the time until we get used to it. So counting in JavaScript starts at 0. Counting at Java. Do you know where else we find a similar thing that really annoys me?
Floors in buildings.
In the UK.
In the UK, the ground floor is called the floor which is level with the ground is called ground, and then the next floor up is called the first floor, which confuses Americans when they come.
Right, because it's wrong.
And it confuses me when I go to America because people talk about the first floor and I go up the stairs and then say, I'm on the second floor. I don't understand it, and walk back down again.
Okay, so it sounds like JavaScript is a British elevator for counting, that we always have to remember it starts at the ground floor. It starts at the ground floor. Oh, I guess saying lift is a bit more.
So the thing we've just changed there is it correctly points out that there was an error. We were checking whether the current weapon was less than the length of the array, but this is because of this 0 indexing that we're talking about. If there are 4 items in the array, which there are, we need it to be less than 4, not less than 3, if that makes sense. Because of the 0 indexing. Oh, in Netherlands, the ground is 0 as well.
I was just about to ask in the chat, be like, wait, where do all y'all's places start? I love how I'm like, it's wrong, it's terrible, and everybody's like, no, that's right, that's actively correct.
This is this is one of those things where JavaScript has decided arrays start at 0.
Cool.
And there are reasons for that. We won't go into them right now if you don't want to, but we can do it at the end or whatever. But it is actually quite useful at times that it does this. It's not just done to be annoying and computery. There are actually reasons.
But the British floor is starting at 0 is just done to be annoying. Amazing. We've got a green stripe. Ramon does a little pat because we are defeating JavaScript one line at a time.
We're not defeating it, we're cooperating with it. Right.
You're cooperating with it. Like I'm not. No. So our if statement needs okay. So here I'm saying if there are still potential weapons I could buy the weapon. And what we're going to add, I see y'all acting up in the chat. I'm going to get you. We're going to add I'm not going to get you. We're going to add an else to say, cool, if you've got all the weapons, we're just going to give you a little like error message. Just like, stop it. You already have the best weapon. So the if.
Yeah. And you'll notice it refers to the outer if statement, because there again, this is the nesting dolls thing we were talking about. The outer one is the if current weapons, and then the inner one here is the if gold is greater than or equal to 30, because it's inside, so it's outer inner.
I'm gonna steal this. I'm gonna copy and paste it because I'm energy efficient. I love folks in the chat who are like, no, this just makes a lot of sense to me. Like starting at 0 makes sense, and like maybe y'all are just much better suited to JavaScript than I was.
If aliens were to come from the planet Zanussi and examine the IT industry, they would say the thing you produce is arguing about little aspects of syntax rather than actually doing the work. It's not the point of the job, but it happens a lot. So
and speaking of which, you'll notice that I left my else on the same.
Yeah, you did. Nice one. And you set text.inner text and you just set it rather than adding to it. Great.
Everything's fine. Well, I mean everything within the bounds of this.
So give it a try. We might want to bump our gold up again and then try buying all the weapons.
And actually, while I'm doing this, when folks are finished with this, like when you do the whole project, I hate to give people optional extra homework. I don't hate it. Do you know what would be really cool? Would be to see folks customize these games so that you're like using the currency you're interested in, or giving people more money, or giving people different weapons. Like I'd love to see people. Okay, sword.
Try again.
Oh,
yay!
And it, like you said, it overwrote that. We don't need to have. So this is just our error messages. doesn't take our money, doesn't keep telling us what weapons we have. It says you've got them all.
And interestingly, when you click on, if you click on buy weapon again now, what it's actually doing is it's setting the text. So it is technically overwriting that text with the text that's already there. You can't tell because it's the same thing, but it is actually setting it. It's not just what it doesn't do. It does not say, "Oh, you're setting it to the thing it already is. I won't do that." It does actually do it, but you can't tell. This doesn't really matter, but it can be useful to know.
Oh, so yeah. So it's happening. So a lot like if I set the backup background, like if I set the background to black and had a fallback color of black, yeah, or fallback value.
Yes.
So where are we? Who are we? Where are
all the way down? There we are.
So in our outer else statement. Oh, we can sell our old weapons. Okay.
I see, but we're only doing this if you've just bought the most powerful weapon. Yeah. Okay.
So the outer else statement. So if else, okay, here.
Yep.
Set a button dot to inner text. And hang on, I'm going to copy and paste this just so I don't typo. I'm going to come on down.
So button 2 is the buy weapon button.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, once we go to the store. So that's
yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna set it to.
Yeah, I think it was sell weapon for 15 gold. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, I'm gonna copy and paste it. My ability to type is
very sensible.
Very, very well defined. So okay, we've got that. And then we're gonna set up an on click for this. It was button 2 dot on click to sell weapon. And we don't have that function yet, do we?
I'm not sure. I think probably we don't. So button 2 dot on click is the it's the way of defining what happens when you click that button. So what we're doing here is we are naming a function, sell weapon. We're saying when you click it, call the sell weapon function. Currently, I'm not sure it matters, but I'd make it lowercase because
is it?
Yeah. I honestly, I'm not 100% sure it matters because I always make it lowercase, and so does everyone else. So I'd make that lowercase. Occasionally, syntaxes matter. So something like inner text, for example, that T has to be capitalized.
Oh.
Otherwise it won't work. JavaScript is case sensitive.
Do you know who's not case sensitive? HTML. HTML would never do us wrong like that.
Correct.
HTML loves us more than JavaScript.
HTML is not case sensitive. JavaScript is case sensitive. So
unnecessary.
As it happens, I don't think it is for the on-click stuff, but it might be. So I'd make it always lowercase.
Eric is saying, and we're previewing here a term we haven't learned before. So when we push the button and it overwrites the text, but it stays the same, would that be an example of asynchronous JavaScript? Actually, do you know what? Let's save that because we might want to go into that a little bit longer at the end. You got a green stripe.
So importantly, before we go on, button 2 dot on click is already set to something. It's set to buy weapon because at the moment when we click on it, it calls this buy weapon function.
Oh.
So what we're doing is we're overwriting that. We're changing it. So we make it so when you click on that button 2, instead of it calling buy weapon, it will call sell weapon instead.
And it's going to change the text here so that my user understands the context of what's going on. I'm going to do this just really fast. So I've got, and we set this to start to say 50, even though we know. Oh, is 80's asking, is CSS case sensitive? Sometimes for some things, is that true?
It depends which bit you're using. So the names of elements in a selector are not case sensitive, but things like the ID in a selector will be, I believe. And I am 74.5% sure that properties are not case sensitive. So if you use color with a capital, it probably works. But honestly, I'm not sure. It's
The thing that I always bully our learners about are if you don't know what's going on, you've got three options, really three options. You can ask somebody you might know, and you've asked us, and we don't know. We said maybe. You could look it up. Or for this, I would recommend Getting Weird. Getting Weird is my favorite option. But we've got all of the types of weapons we can have. And I'm going to buy a weapon again. And boom, we see that not only we got this, you could already have the most powerful weapon. Now we can sell a weapon. And we don't have that function yet. It doesn't do it.
Yeah, so if you bring up the console,
yeah.
and then if you click on sell weapon, it will say sell weapon is not defined because we haven't defined it yet. We've told it to call a function called sell weapon, but we haven't told it what sell weapon is yet. I suspect that's coming up in the next step.
I'm so sorry.
So Anthony asks a question where he says, can you make that come up on the screen?
Yes, I can. I'm so sorry.
That would be cool.
Anthony?
So what you're suggesting there, Anthony, that wouldn't be right, because what that would do is that would call button2.onClick. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to call the button2.onClick function. We want to set the value of button2.onClick to be sell weapon. We don't want to call it yet. We're giving it the name of a function to call when someone else calls it. We don't want to call it.
Okay, so those smooth, when we see the smooth braces like that in this format, we're going to associate them like, oh, this is us calling something. This is us calling something. This is us calling the function. Cool. And I'm not picking on you. I also wanted that clarified in my head. Go to the next challenge. Everything's fine. Oh, function. You literally just say, hey, I've got a function I want to make. Sell weapon. Sell weapon. I may or may not have parameters, but I still need the smooth braces anyway, right?
Correct, yes.
And then this is empty. I don't have to put anything in it. We are going to click on this right now, and it's going to be fantastic. We're going to get that green stripe. It's going to be amazing. No one can stop us. We are shining and immortal.
Oh, Mitch says they discussed the on-click method the other day, and Ramon said it should be on-click, but it must be all lowercase to work, which is cool. I didn't actually know that. I've just always done it all lowercase, never thought to question it. But
so really, if it was correct, it would be the way I want it. And if we want it to work, we should do what Stuart recommends.
In general, arguing with the language about what's correct doesn't buy you anything because it gets to decide and you don't. So
inside the sub weapon function, we're going to make an if statement and not an is statement. That's doing Jess. Come on. The hardest problem in computer science is typing when other people can see you. And here are the conditions. We need our smooth babies as well, right? Yep. Is that if
an if statement always has a condition, and the condition is always in brackets, in smooth brackets.
If inventory is greater than
remember inventory is an array. Oh. So what we're checking is the length.
Oh, length.
Of the inventory.
We just did this. I know this.
Yep. That's right. So we're not actually doing anything in there yet, but what we're going to do is say if the inventory length is less than 1, then we can go on and do some other stuff. You will note, by the way, that we're checking the length of inventory because the only thing in this game that you can buy and put in your inventory is weapons. So if we had a more complicated inventory that could have food in it or whatever, then we need to be a bit clever about this because we shouldn't allow people to try to sell a weapon if what they've got is
17 apples.
Yeah, 25 rations and a box of dice or something. But here,
very specific.
Well, you know. But here, all that can be in the inventory is weapons. So we're safe as saying if there's something in your inventory, it must be a weapon, and therefore you're allowed to sell things.
Is that what you've got in your backpack? It's like a bunch of ready meals and some. It is, isn't it?
I have dice literally right here.
We absolutely did not. We mindfully booked our guest pairing partners, and I get. I didn't get my dorkiest friend, but I got my most specifically dorky friend. So inside the statement, gold. Okay, I could do this. I could do this. Gold is going to be plus equal to 15. Is that it?
That seems plausible to me. You are adding. The idea here is that you're selling a weapon, so you get 15 gold back. So your amount of gold goes up by 15. So you
okay, but like, I'm not. That just seems very rational and very reasonable. That just seems very, very well put together. And I don't like that it came out of my brain and that I feel moderately, ha ha ha. I knew this wasn't going to. So gold. Oh yeah, I didn't set it to anything. I just said I want to do that. I'm going to set the gold dot inner text to gold. Okay.
So, and we talked before about stringification, right? Gold is a number, not a string. But when you set inner text to it, it quietly turns it into a string for you. And it's fine. It just works.
And so that's what inner text is doing, saying, okay, look, I see that you're going to be presenting this as text. I'm going to make this a string if I can.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. That's significantly less scary and bad than it was in my heart.
I would have probably indented those two lines so it lines up, but you can do that with format document. The reason the reason people are picky about things like indentation with stuff like this is
wait, stop. The learners already know what the term is. What's the term for when you keep your code readable for your future self and your sorry, I was just like, no, they know this, they're so good at this, and I'm lazy. Anytime I can bully the learners to be like, yo, what do you call that concept where you're trying to keep your code cognitively processable, easy to parse, but for humans. Go to the next challenge. And there's just always a little bit of a delay. So we always get to be smug, be like, oh, it takes them ages. They don't know. They know right away. So we're going to create a variable called current weapon. Oh, we talked about scope a lot. So our current weapon is the current weapon. Ooh. 80 human readability. Yeah, that we want human readable code. Love it. So if we go all the way up to the top and find current weapon that we've already defined, this is a global variable. This is available everywhere. We can use that anywhere, right?
Yes.
Cool. I'm going to come all the way back down again. And we're going to define another variable with the same name, which feels confusing, but I bet it'll be fine. But it's going to be scoped so that it only lives inside the variable. Like it only stays in its own neighborhood. So if you go out past its neighborhood and say, oh, do you know current weapon? They'll be like, yeah, I know the global variable current weapon. Okay. So the let keywords, when we might change it later. Let current. Ooh, while I'm typing, Jane's like, hey, is that chill? Is that okay? Would we use the same name in two different places?
So if it was me,
I don't love it.
I would not do this. I would not have a global variable and then have another variable with the same name inside a block. We talked about blocks yesterday. So let and const have block scope, it's called, which means if you define a variable with let, it only takes effect inside that block. So you can do this, and then the one you've defined inside that block is the one that works inside that block, and you don't see the global one at all. It's called shadowing.
Well, I don't like that. I mean, I can't argue with the language.
Yeah, it is. I personally, to answer Jane's question, I would not do this because it's confusing. Just talked about readability there. And the person who is most likely to be reading this code and trying to understand it is you 5 months from now. And if you've got the word current weapon means two different things depending on where it is, That would confuse me, so I wouldn't do it. But they presumably
And
have a
that's such
reason.
a good point that like your future self, like you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to remember all these variables, but like
You will not.
you will not. So the shift method removes the first element from an array and shows it to you and returns it.
And returns it. Yes.
Okay, so the shift method, go and get the first thing in an array and then present it to me. Okay.
But
So I'm going to say
it doesn't present it to you. It does something with it. So we're going to say let current weapon equals whatever.shift.
Okay.
We're taking the first element from the inventory array. What we're doing, not the weapons array.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Scar makes a really good point. So we're using the same variable name for educational purposes, but like in real life, this might be a little, yeah, we're talking about abstraction and learning again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Avi's asking like, so this variable that's scoped to only work within this if statement is only going to be accessible within this if statement. So a variable with limited scope can only do things in the neighborhood that knows about it.
Yeah. So, AD, when you say a scope variable only functions within the function, that's not quite right. It only functions within the block that you're in. If you define a variable with let or with const, it exists in the block. So here, current weapon would exist inside the if statement, but it wouldn't exist outside the if statement, but still inside cell weapon. You might see in older JavaScript code people using the word var to define variables.
No, we said we were going to pretend that var didn't exist.
Oh, were we? Okay, right. var didn't exist. You didn't hear anything. Don't worry about it.
Ramon said the exact same thing, to be like, look, maybe you're going to see it, but we're just going to pretend it's not real.
You will see. So, what you're doing, remember what we want to do here is you want to take the first element off the inventory array and you'll take the first element off the weapons
array.
Because the idea here is that what we're doing is we're removing the first thing in inventory
and selling it
and setting current weapon to it. But interestingly, that line actually does two things. So the first thing in the inventory will be stick, say, and some balloons just happened.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Did I press a button or something?
No. So it's the same software that powers Zoom. So sometimes if you do a hand gesture and you've got your Zoom settings to do stuff, it'll when I was doing HTML, sometimes I would get balloons when I was like,
I can do hand gestures and it does things. Is it?
No, don't.
Sorry,
I can see the future and you're gonna act up.
But yes, so sorry, where was I? This does two things. So when we do inventory.shift, it actually removes the first thing from the array. So the first thing in the inventory is a stick, right? So after this, inventory will be the other things, but not the stick, and current weapon will be the stick.
So us using this shift method is really, really good because when we sell this, we want to take it out of the array anyway, which it does, and return it.
Yes.
Ah, that's rad. We can bop on to the next challenge. Let's just do a couple more. I'm conscious. You want to do it? So let's do one more step. And can I get some, if anybody's got questions about anything we're taking a look at, or about JavaScript, or about, I apparently, Doctor Who?
Don't ask me Doctor Who questions.
I'm not going
to be able to answer them.
My brain delivered like Mr. Who first, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's going to get me deported if I say Mr. Who.
He didn't go to Gallifreyan medical school for 100 years to be called Mr. Who. You know?
Please, Mr. Who is my father. So text
sigma.
Inner text is going to be set to equal to. Oh no, the concatenation operator.
Correct, because what we want to do is add it on the end. No,
and then
plus equals.
Plus equals. Yeah.
Has to be the right way around.
I was just showing the learners that it's easy to make mistakes, even if you're good at stuff all the time.
Totally. It's but this is one of those things where it matters which way around it is. Equals plus will not work.
You sold a. I don't have to add another plus or anything. I can just like list all
You
these.
do
I
need to
do.
add that.
I do. Ha ha ha. And then current weapon. And it seems kind of wild to do it like this, but I think that what's going on is I need to hang on, let's take a look at this. Oh, semicolon, semicolon. Oh gosh, and actually, so absolutely hit us with any questions you've got, but I will also be very, very, because I know that Doctor Who fans like to argue about the best doctor. So anybody who's got an opinion, I would love to enjoy y'all's polite argument from a distance. So
should we give this a try?
I mean, yeah.
We're gonna need to jack up our gold again.
Yes.
Because in order to be able to sell weapons, we have to have bought them all. So cheat. Okay.
Go to the store.
Go to the store. Buy a weapon.
Get a weapon.
Buy a weapon.
Get a weapon.
Buy a weapon.
Get a weapon.
Buy a weapon.
Okay.
We already have it. So now if we sell one,
sell it.
We sold a stick, and now try it again. So try selling another one.
Oh.
Sold a dagger. Because it's taking the first thing off. So our inventory used to read stick, dagger, hammer, sword. We take the first one off it. So now the inventory says dagger, hammer, sword. So when we take the first one off again, it takes the dagger off. And then we take the first one off again, and it will take the claw hammer off.
But one thing that I think, like at least for me, this is a design question. But if I was playing and there weren't any guardrails, like I could sell my claw, and then I could sell my, can I not sell my sword?
The reason it won't let you do that, you will remember that it checks whether the length of the inventory is greater than 1.
It does. I was going to say, I really wish it had a guard on there that let us not sell our most powerful thing. And we did that.
We in fact have. Because you will recall in sell weapon, it checks.
Yeah.
If inventory.length is greater than 1.
Is greater than 1. Okay. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be fine. All right. So let's do some question and answer and talk homework. As our special guest star, how much homework do we think we should give them?
So where are we up to? 104. 104. It seemed to go up to round numbers before. Last time we went from 70 to about 85, and then we went up to 90 for homework. So maybe we're going up to 110 be too far, do we think? Is 105 better?
You know what? You've known me for a long time, and I'm always mean. 110. Could y'all go ahead and see if you can get to 110 for your homework? I will also go back and do my homework, I promise, someday, maybe in the far future. So I'd love to see folks try and get to 110, but remember there's no deadlines. If you do this next week or next month or next year, I'm going to be just as happy. So the first question is the easiest, which was somebody saying, can I have the Discord link in the chat? And of course you can. Sorry, I should really set a shortcut. Okay. So syntactic sugar. And this was talking about something we were doing, but what's syntactic sugar?
So
just to preview it, no, there's no test. There's nothing bad's going to happen if you haven't heard this before.
But it's a term that you might come across. So to give you an example, we saw you can add to variables by saying something equals something plus 5 or whatever, and that will add 5 to. So we saw with gold, you do gold equals gold plus 5. Syntactic sugar is an alternative way of writing that, which is shorter and easier to write. So the thing where we said gold plus equals 5, that's syntactic sugar. It doesn't need to exist. The idea is that the sugar makes it sweeter, right? That's the metaphor here. So yes, syntactic with a Y is how it's spelled, but the spelling doesn't matter. But the idea behind syntactic sugar is if people need to do a thing a lot and it involves a lot of typing, there'll quite often be a shorter way to do it, so it speeds people up who are writing it a lot. But you never need it.
Yeah,
that's why it's sugar, right? You add it to taste.
So I'm just going to throw the Wikipedia up here. Syntactic sugar is just like a sweet little shortcut.
Yeah.
Oh, love it. And do you know what else I massively appreciate is, thank you so much for this question. Monica, I'm so sorry that I need this answer too, because I'm not super sure. Can a method be like, is a method always something that's predefined, that built in? Or can I write my own function and have that become a method?
So a method is a function which is attached to an object. Some objects are built in. So, for example, all the stuff to do with the DOM, like the document object. So, you'll recall we use document dot query selector. There, the document is an object and it's a built-in object. You didn't create it; the browser created it for you. Yeah, if you scroll up to the top, cool. So there, document.query selector. Document is an object which is built in. It's provided by the browser. Query selector is a method on the document object, by which is meant query selector is just a function, but it's a function that's attached to an object. That's all you need to be a method. A method is just a function that's attached to an object. It doesn't matter whether it's an object you created or an object someone else created. It's just a method is a function which is attached to an object.
Cool. A method is a function which is attached to an object. A method is a function which is attached to an object. I'm just going to make some Anki cards later. It's going to be fine. Okay. Are all methods built-in functions that contain the smooth braces that the functions have? So Mitch is saying, so part of this we just got the answer for is like, are all methods built-in functions? Are they all predefined? And we got to know you can do your own. It's cool. But do they always have the smooth braces?
Yes. So when you're defining a function, so if we scroll down to our say by sword function or whatever it was called, by weapon. I think it was on about line 90 or something. If you want to scroll down for me, Jess.
I never want to scroll down.
You know, or any of these. But we want the function. Yeah. So function by weapon. You see there, you define it by putting function, the name of the function, and the smooth brackets. And when you call a function, then you use the brackets to indicate that you are calling it. But you can use the name of a function to refer to the function itself without calling
it, like we did with onClick.
Yes. So when we did the onClick, we're not saying call this function now when this line of code runs. We're saying set the onClick property of this object, this button in the DOM, to be that function by name. So when someone does click on it, it then knows what to call, but it doesn't call it when you allocate it. It calls it when it gets clicked on.
Cool. Sorry to get really excited. I saw that the next things we're going to get to build are like the fighting parts, and I think those are going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So Eric's giving us a preview, and if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I will give you the rest of your homework and dismiss class after these two. So we saw that when the text changes on the screen but doesn't show us that. So you have the most powerful weapon, you have the most powerful weapon, you have the most powerful weapon, but it didn't visually change for us. Is this going to be an example of asynchronous JavaScript? And this is, again, just to preview a concept that we're going to take a look at later. We don't need to know this term now, but we've got an expert, we've got the expert.
Not the expert. So the answer to the question is no. Something which is asynchronous is something where you can set it going, but then you can carry on doing things while it's working. That code that we're writing there, where we were setting inner text, that if setting the inner text of something took 30 seconds, we couldn't do anything until it was done. Now, in practice, it doesn't. It's almost instantaneous, so you don't notice it. But it's synchronous without the A, which means that each line, you have to wait for it to finish and then go on to the next one. It's all very quick because computers are very quick now, but it's not asynchronous. Asynchronous stuff, you'll come across this later, but you might see things like set timeout being used, or the async and await functions.
Oh, we'll definitely do those later.
Keywords, sorry, yeah. But that's a more complicated topic.
All right, we've got one more question, and I love this question. I mean, I love all the questions. I love all the questions equally. But Chris is like, hey, how would we make the inventory a bit cleaner in the DOM? Would using stuff we haven't learned yet, but will learn, like split and join work, rather than having. And I love this because if you look at the chat, we've already got people being like, oh yeah, we could do that. What about like inventory join and then with a space? And Scar's like, oh, actually, so I love that we don't even have to, we're not even answering this for you, A, because we're mean, and B, because I'm going to give you all some homework so you can leave. But this opportunity to say, hey, let's experiment with this with your colleagues, like with the learners who are learning alongside you, is so nice. If it's all right, I'd love to opt not to answer that question. So,
If I can chip in very slightly, so the original, the first answer we saw to that one, Chris, you wouldn't do it that way because you don't need to split it. So split takes a string and returns an array of all the bits in that string split up by the thing you passed. But inventory is already an array.
Oh.
So you don't need to split it up. It's already split up because it's all separate words. Joins up an array, and I'm not going to talk any more about that because we're going to leave people to solve this for themselves.
Just to experiment. So just I'd love to see people chatting about this in the Discord, just to see, just because it's really tempting to be like, let's explain and create. No, let's get a little bit of friction on this. Like, let's be a little bit unhappy as we learn, so that it sticks bitterly in our hearts. Yeah, I bet you wish Ramon was still here, huh? All right, so the homework is pretty please, if you get a chance. I've demonstrated that sometimes we don't get chances. Look at that. Y'all got so much done and we did not. Go all the way up to 110 if it's not a bother. And also the durable homework is please be as easy on yourselves as you can as you're learning. This is hard. This is really hard. Give yourself a break. Definitely have the softest time. Oh, because it's the weekend as well. We should have given them more homework. 120,
No,
120,
it's
120.
the weekend. The point
It's
of
the
weekend is you
weekend.
get time off.
Okay, please, if you can. I know a lot of people work on the weekends. It happens. But please try and have the easiest weekend you can. And we'll see you right back on Monday. Bye, everybody.
Cheers all.